Welcome back to Budgeting Around the World, where we talk all things travel and budgeting. I budget one full year in advance. It is December 2019 and I have budgeted for all of 2020 already. Here's how. So when I'm looking at setting up my budget for the year, I start with a few steps that I'm going to lay out, and then I put everything into a spreadsheet, and then I readjust things to make them make sense, and then I figure out if my goals make sense. And once I've done all that, then I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing for the year, and we can do this. I will be inputting some screenshots and screen records. All of the figures that I'm using are just for illustration. This is not my real life or my real income, my real expenses, but I just wanted you to see it. You don't have to use a spreadsheet to do this. You can do this on paper if you want to, though I wouldn't recommend it, because if you change one number, it'll change every number, and who has time for that? So the first thing I do is I set my money goals for the year. I look at, it's 2020, these are my overall life goals, these are my 2020 goals, and these are my financial goals. Within those financial goals, for example, like this year I want to pay off all of my credit cards, I want to pay off my car note, and I want to save $20,000 in 2020. So stay tuned for 20K in 2020. I'm going to talk about it Tuesdays here on Budgeting Around the World. But so number one, I lay out all of those things, and I literally physically write them down. Secondly, I lay out what's coming up. Weddings, trips, Christmas, if your family does that, whatever holidays, whatever you know that you're going to spend money on, that you don't spend money on every single month. Again, lay it out, put a number to it. I know, for example, this year I'm in a wedding. One of my best friends is getting married. I have a budget specifically for that wedding. I know that I want to go on a birthday trip sometime in July. I have a budget specifically set for that. I know that I want to go on a ton of conferences this year. 2020 is my year of conferences. I'm learning all the things. So I have a budget specifically for that. So whatever you know that you have coming up in the year, even if you don't have exacts, like I don't know exactly how much I'm going to spend on this wedding, but I have a chunk of money set aside. And you want to set aside more than you think you're going to spend. It's always better to have extra money than not enough. Once you've laid out your goals, you've laid out what's coming up, then you want to lay out your expenses. Your expenses are your rent or mortgage, your car note, your car insurance, things that have to get paid. If there's something that will eventually be paid off, you want to, indicate that so you can keep that into mind when you go to put it in the spreadsheet. You need to know what's due every month, the minimum payment, what you actually want to pay, and the day of the month that is due. And then once you've done all of that, you want to look at your income. So you've looked at all of your expenses, all the things coming out of your account. What do you expect to be coming into your account? Do you expect to have a side hustle? How much money do you think you'll bring in from that? What is your expectation from work? Do you work hourly? Do you work a salary? What do you think you'll make every check? And then from that check, how often you get paid? And from how often you get paid, how many times does that happen in a year? So for example, if you get paid $100 bi-weekly, if you get paid bi-weekly, there's 26 checks in a month. So by the end of the year, you'll have $2,600. So you can do that simple math to get to ultimately how much you're going to be making in that year. And then once you have all of this information, you want to plug it into your spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet that I've been perfecting for like 4 years now. I started it when I was an undergrad, and it controls my entire life. It has every month laid out, and I can look at everything in one swoop. I'll upload some screenshots of my particular spreadsheet so that you can see it. But you can use Excel, you can use paper, you can use whatever system you're comfortable using to plug all this information in. So once you have all of that information, you want to first plug in your must-have expenses, these things that have to come out. Once you have those things plugged in, then you want to plug in all of the other things that have to happen, your things that are coming up that year, and your money goals. You want to plug all of this in and see where you stand. If you have money left over, great. You can add some more savings. You can up some of your goals. You can do a few different things with that money, which we'll talk about later in the channel, so stay tuned. If that number is negative, it's time to make some adjustments. You can either change your goals, you can increase your income, or sometimes just moving money around can be beneficial. For example, for this year, I realized that I'm planning to save money for a wedding that's in May, and my birthday is in July, and I want to pay off my credit cards by March. That's asking a whole lot of the first 6 months of the year. In the second 6 months of the year, I'm sitting pretty. So I adjusted some things. I may not go on a trip on my actual birthday, but I want to go on a trip within those first few months, within this year. So maybe if I should push that back a couple of months. And then I know that I need to spend money on this wedding, and I really want to be, super fly, but maybe I can spend a little bit less money. Maybe I can go down one day later than I plan on going, or make adjustments on who I'm staying with or where I'm staying so I can adjust the expenses associated with the wedding. Maybe I need to just pay down my credit cards and then pay them off, not necessarily by March. Maybe I can pay them down by March and then pay them off by May. Give myself some room to adjust within that budget. And you need to decide if the things that are in your budget make sense. If you have $300 in your budget allocated to getting your nails done, you need to really look at, is this $300 getting my nails done worth it? Or my hair, or my shoes, or whatever your thing is, because we all have one. Am I willing to sacrifice this thing in order to get that thing? Am I willing to sacrifice me getting my nails done every 2 weeks in order for me to go on a big blowout trip for my birthday? Am I willing to sacrifice that pair of sneakers a couple times a month in order for me to be in my homeboy's wedding? Whatever it works out, or whatever your thing is, as you look at your budget, you really need to figure out, is it worth it? Is there something that I can give up that allows me to do the things that I still want to do? And in that spreadsheet, you have to take into account gas, groceries, personal expenses. If you are a person that gets your hair and nails done all the time, you need to take that into account. If you get your haircut every other week, you need to take that into account. Whatever you do, whatever money comes out of your account needs to be accounted for in this budget. Every single penny. And once you have all those things figured out, and that's kind of a lot, but take your time with it. It could take a couple days to do this. You don't have to do this all in like one sitting. But once you figured all of that out, then you want to adjust your budget so that every month you end with zero. And if you don't get paid consistently, then you can skip this step altogether. You're done, because you want your money to roll over. If you don't get paid consistently, your money needs to roll over from month to month so that you can cover the low months with the high months. If you get paid consistently every single month and it's basically the same, at the end of the month, you need to have every single penny accounted for as to where it's going. Because if you don't, then that's the opportunity for you to sneak in and be like, well, let me just... No. Give it a place, give it a home, and send it home when the month comes. So with all of this information and with my lovely spreadsheet, I can look and see what I can do for the entire year. I can see where my money is going, where my money isn't going. I can see what I need to figure out. Like, I know that I want to save 20 grand in 2020, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do all of it. I have about 17 figured out, so I have 3 grand to find somewhere. So I can take all that into account. I also can look at if something were to pop up. Someone calls me today. It's like, hey, I really want to go on this trip in whatever month. I can plug in the numbers and see if it's even feasible. If I need to adjust something from one month to make it happen, maybe. But there's some months I just can't do it. You need to also take into account timing. I know the first half of next year, don't ask me for anything. Again, don't ask me for anything. I'm not going anywhere because I have a lot of goals, a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of things that I want to get done before my 26th birthday, which is in July. After that, we'll talk about it. It's also very, very important to recognize when you're doing these budgets, it's all estimates. These numbers do not have to be 100% exact. You want them to be as close to exact as possible because that makes it easier when it comes time to actually implement this if it's accurate. But you also don't want to get stuck in this and not be able to adjust as months come. There may be a month where I really want to put $500 in a credit card, but I need tires on my car. Guess what? I'm gonna put the tires on my car because I need to get to work every day. I need to not crash my car when it's raining outside. So things are gonna adjust. These goals you may not hit exact. I give myself a little bit of extra room. If I know, for example, I know this wedding is in May, I want all of my savings to be done by April. So even if, and it's at the end of May, so even if I'm like a check behind, I'm still in time for the wedding. I also recognize that while I'm saving for this, by the time I get to May, I'm gonna have spent some of the savings. Just because you're saving $1,000 for this trip doesn't mean that when you go on the trip you're gonna have $1,000, because that $1,000 includes your flight, includes your hotel, includes your excursions, and you want to book those things in advance. You need to book your flight in advance. You need to book your hotel in advance. Sometimes you pay for it in advance. Sometimes you pay for it at the door. Depending on where you're going, you may want to book your excursions in advance. So recognize that, yes, you're saving $1,000. That does not mean that $1,000 is going to be sitting in a bank account. That means that $1,000 is allocated to that particular thing. All right, Muggles, happy Money Monday. Let me know, how do you budget? How far in advance do you budget? What systems do you use? Let's talk about it. Let's share, and let's all be great in year 2020. I'll see you all next week. Bye.